They thought I was an SOB, and I'll never forget the first time I met them. They walked ahead of me. We got on the train and we met them off the train.
Okay.
And they walked ahead of me.
With Vince? With Dad?
Yes.
And left you behind
him and left me behind.
Oh.
I thought that was disgusting.
That was a little hurtful.
That's
then,
okay.
huh?
That's okay. I've gotten over it.
How long after you were married did you go back to England and meet all the families?
Oh, a year later.
A year later. So you've been
Yes.
married a year. Now, how long did you both stay up in Baltimore or New York or wherever you lived?
A year.
A year.
And then we moved to Houston.
You moved to Houston. What made you decide to move to Houston?
Well, that's what Vince, there were good job openings in Houston.
Okay. You'd heard, remember Dad saying you'd heard that there was a new medical center starting
Yes.
in Texas, Houston, Texas. And Dad had also come over on the same program as you from
No,
England?
He came a year earlier.
A year earlier?
No, he came a year later.
A year later?
Yes.
Okay, so he had just arrived to Hopkins
Yes.
when you met him, because you'd already been there a good year
Yes.
beforehand. But he was under the same program,
Yes.
America paid his way over? Okay. Was he planning to stay in America, do you know? Or?
Oh yes, because he'd got booted out of, he'd written something bad about his university. So he got booted out of England.
Oh, really?
Yes.
He'd written something bad about his university?
Yes.
What was that about?
I've forgotten.
Okay. About his college, his medical school, or
Yes. His medical school.
Oh dear. And he'd gone, where had he gone to medical school?
He went to Guy's,
College.
and then he went to Africa for 6 months
For 6 months.
because his dad worked in Africa in the gold mines.
Ah. When Dad was younger, right?
Yes.
And what part of Africa did he go to? Do you remember?
Nigeria.
It was Nigeria.
Yes.
'Cause I remember seeing the pictures of him with little, Dad was this big, tall white man. There's these
Yes.
little men that came to about here on him.
What did his dad do in Africa?
And what did,
He was a prospector.
a prospector? So he worked for the gold industry?
Yes.
And do you know when he came back to England, or, I mean, I always just thought he lived in England, but would he travel down to Africa?
Yes.
Okay. And Dad's name was also Vincent,
Really?
wasn't it?
Yes.
We always called him Poppy
Yes.
as children.
Yes.
Poppy. Okay. Interesting. I didn't know that. So Dad had graduated from medical school. Did he graduate the same year you did? He was
No.
a year younger than you, wasn't
Yes.
he?
Yes.
And then he went to Africa for 6 months, came back to England, and then he decided to go to America
Yes.
because things weren't good in
There
England.
was no job for him in England because he'd written something about this guy.
Ooh, one of the professors or something,
Yes.
or the head man, or
Yes.
we'll have to find out about that. The guy's college, something Dad did wrong. Huh. Okay, well there you go. And so when you met, so he was just freshly there when you first met him, and he was under the same visa that you were, a
No,
permanent
I
visa,
was not. I was a permanent.
and he was also.
Yes.
Okay. So now we go back up to you've been married, you've been there a year, and you're deciding to move to Texas. And tell me about that move.
Well, I drove down 6 months after him.
So he went ahead of you.
Yes, he went ahead of me. And I drove down in this old green car.
What kind of car was it?
Oh, it was a very old car. It had no seats in it except the driver's seat.
Oh my heavens. You drove all by yourself?
Yes.
No cell phones, no?
No.
How
I
many
didn't
days
have
did it take you?
5, I think.
5 days. You'd stop in little motels on the way?
Yes.
Wow.
And then once they were following me and I said, "What's wrong?" And they said, "Oh, you have a flat tire." I always remember that.
What state were you in when that happened?
Somewhere.
Somewhere. So you pulled over and these people helped you fix your flat?
Yes, they did.
Wow. So Dad came to Houston way ahead of you.
Yes.
And it was 6 months before you followed him down?
Yes.
And you didn't see each other during that 6 months?
Right.
Wow. Okay. And then, so this would have been 19, because you married in 59, didn't you? 59, am I right? I think I'm right. I might have my dates wrong, but I don't have it written down. But you were married in November 12th.
Yes, November 12th.
It's either 1958 or 1959. I'll have to look that one up. Okay, and then, so when did you come to Houston then? You think about 1960?
When did I come to Houston?
Yeah.
Yeah, we heard there was a good training program there in anesthesia.
In anesthesia.
So we all came to Houston.
Who's we all?
Vince and I.
Okay. Anybody else from up there?
No.
Came down? Okay. And he had already found an apartment and such by the time you got there?
Yes, we lived on that street off Montrose.
Okay. That little apartment. I've seen
Yes.
pictures of it.
Yes.
And where did he
Now
first...
it's torn down.
Where did he first work?
In the Bentob.
In Bentob. And that's not there anymore,
I
is it?
know, it's not.
The Bentob Hospital, doing anesthesia.
Yes.
And by the time, when you got there, where did you go to work?
I went to work in the Herman.
The Herman Hospital.
Yes.
Huh. And then did how long before you, I thought there was somewhere else Dad worked before he came to the Methodist. It was just Bentob? There wasn't anywhere in Bel Air or anything like that? No? Okay. So eventually you both moved to Methodist?
No, I didn't move to Methodist. I stayed in Bentor. I stayed in
Herman.
Herman. And it was a disaster. They didn't train me at all. They just left you in a room.
Oh dear.
It's terrible.
And so Dad moved to Methodist though?
Yes.
Okay. And by that time were you still being trained? Or were you full anesthesiologist
Oh,
by that
no,
time?
no, you were still being trained.
Okay.
Because the training takes 2 years, now it takes 3.
Okay. And then when didn't you eventually work at Methodist? No? Never worked at Methodist? I thought you did. Part-time. It's okay. Don't worry about it. She can't remember. Okay. Now I remember, and I came along in 1963. So there was
Yes.
3 years there where you were waiting for a baby. Okay. And did you have troubles at getting pregnant?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I kept going back to see Stan.
Stan Rogers.
Stan Rogers, he was
That's
my
right.
wonderful obstetrician.
And you didn't, when did you move into the house of Marlife?
Well, we moved across the road first.
Right. What year? Was I already born
Yes.
when you moved in there?
Yes. 63, I think.
Because I was born in September of 63.
We moved in 63,
Okay.
opposite Stan.
All right, Stan Rogers. And then you eventually bought Stan Rogers' house, which is the house you're in now. Okay. Because I remember seeing pictures of like Sean in his baptism outfit outside in the front yard of
Yes.
the house across the road. So that was 65. So anyhow, all right. So did you work when I was a little baby?
No.
It didn't work at all.
No.
So you quit work once I came along?
Yes.
All right. Because I can somewhat, I remember when I was like 3, you were working a little bit. No? No? You stopped working once the babies came along?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And you had trouble getting pregnant and eventually had me. Did you have trouble getting pregnant and having Sean?
Yes.
Yes? Same with him again?
Hmm.
But they weren't able in those days to help you.
No.
No? Okay. And birth-wise, did they put you to sleep? Did they give you an epidural?
No, I labored with Sean. They gave me an epidural with you.
Okay.
But I said, no, don't give me anything.
With
To
Sean.
Yes. So he didn't.
But I remember he had a major big head, didn't he? I remember, that baby had a big head.
How do you remember that?
I just vividly remember that from a long time ago. You showed me pictures of him. I'm like, that's a big head. He was all head. But anyhow, so, all right. So you had an epidural with me. I thought I remember you saying you eventually would wake up and there was the baby. No, don't remember that? They might have done that with Sean then. Maybe it was Sean you're talking